Okay, hello. Hello, everyone. Catherine Massell, Elevated Consciousness Coach, New Earth Visionary. Hello, I made it. Better late than never. I want to make sure I'm live in the right place. There I am. We are New Earth. Fanny, lay down. My poor doggy's like, can we go out? It's a beautiful sunshiny day out here. It is glorious here in Bellingham, Washington. Glorious. So I'm going to see who's going to jump on. And then we're going to get into it. We are in day 2 of self-sabotage to self-support. And we've got a lot to talk about today. So hopefully yesterday you were able to grab that assessment for, hello everyone, welcome. Say hello, let me know you're here. Hopefully yesterday you were able to grab that assessment for finding out your saboteurs. And if you did not get it, I can find it for you right now. I will give you the link. So this is the link for the In Alignment and Thriving Core program and the, hi Jante. And so the link for the saboteur assessment lives in the description of the In Alignment and Thriving Core program course. Okay, so let's just see here. Okay, so I want to put that in right now. So when you click on this link, just scroll all the way down through the description, read the description to this awesome program, and then at the very bottom you have the saboteur assessment. So what we're working on here today is going off of that information. So this 2-day workshop is called Self-Sabotage to Self-Support. So in day 1, we covered what those sabotages might be, what they look like, what the biggest saboteurs might be in your life, and how they work, how they function, how they hold you back from the fullness of life. We talked about that a little bit yesterday in the call of day 1. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about what those look like when you take the negative shadow aspect and then roll that in the potential of the what I call the master aspect. So we live in a world of duality, polarity, and contrast, right? That's what the 3D experience is about, even though we're more in 4D now than in 2D, to be honest. So everything has polarized aspects, right? And there is an immutable universal law called the law of polarity, which means unchangeable. Immutable is unchangeable, right? So throughout the universe, we have polarity. It works differently outside of the third dimension, but we really came here to this third dimensional experience to, to acknowledge, work with, accept, learn from contrast. That's what this giant mystery school of planet Earth in 3D, 4D is all about. So if there is a negative shadow aspect of your saboteur that's holding you back from the fullness of life, in other words, then there is also a positive aspect that allows you to move into the potential of who you are truly meant to be. And so what we had talked about yesterday, and I will repeat it again today because this bears repeating often, that your saboteurs really are misplaced energies, okay? The saboteurs, as they function in their negative shadow aspect, they exist in shadow, which means they exist beyond the light of your love. That's what it means to have something exist in shadow. When we do shadow work, we are working with aspects, parts of self, that exist beyond the light of your love. And that means beyond your acceptance of them, beyond your acknowledgement, recognition of them, and beyond your ability to love them back into wholeness. That's what shadow is. And so if we have this shadow aspect, what we're really working with our saboteurs is we're working with an aspect that never ceases loving us. It wants to protect us. And another important thing that we need to talk about that is key to our human existence, which is emotional safety. We're all emotional creatures. How we define our reality here on planet Earth is through the many different vibrations we experience on the emotional scale. Okay? You know, to everything from deep, deep shame, regret, fear, to deep, deep, profound, compassionate love in all of its forms. We're here to experience the full spectrum of that. That's something that's very unique to our 3D experience. And we're not here to negate that or any part of it, but we are here to glean lessons and gain wisdom from where we play with this emotional contrast. And ultimately, it's how we create meaning for our entire reality. It's how we figure out from having the experience of certain emotions that maybe this emotion isn't so wholesome for me, but this one is. This is the learning experience and the wisdom that we glean from that here in 3D. And it's all part of our soul's journey. I kind of cringe sometimes, and I keep seeing it, and I wish that I would stop seeing it. But what we wish for or say we should be, that means that we don't accept it. And what we don't accept, we continue to judge, right? In alignment, members. So I see this often cropping up, and I'm just going to talk about it very quickly, in our spiritually awakening community and those who are striving towards enlightenment. This ideal that we can separate our human out, or deem it, worse yet, lesser than our spiritual counterpart, or who we are in alignment with source being. You're human, meaning this vessel, this conveyance of your spirit, of your soul, of your essence here at this time, is the only filter of your experience here on planet Earth. We're not here to negate this. We're not here to deem it lesser than. This is the filter that we've chosen as a soul to experience our soul's trajectory in at this time. And yes, it is a blip. It is a small fraction of our soul's experience, even though we might have some experiences here on planet Earth that feel like they take forever and they feel unwholesome, or they feel like a wild ride that we'd rather not have. Your human is your chosen conveyance, your vessel, your container for your soul's essence at this time. And if it was something that was chosen by your soul, how can it be bad? How can it be something that you constantly want to separate out or say, like, this thing here isn't nearly as good enough as my soul? Let's pull back from this idea that what we experience here in 3D is bad and we want to get out of here as soon as you possibly can. That, we think we can squash this darkness of 3D, whatever that is, and on all its myriad forms. We are not here to do that. We are not here to be in negation. We are here for integration. We are here for unity. We are here to remember that we are unity consciousness. And I keep seeing these recurring themes in our community where people are trying to negate their human as something that's bad, lesser than. It's foolish, it's dumb, it's something we want to escape from. You can't do it. Your entire filter for your experience is your human. We're here to learn and remember, really, how to unify the soul with all aspects of who we are, to bring them into this divine union, this divine marriage, which is then holy. And the word holy is key here because it connotes wholeness. Does that make sense? So we're not here to push away at or deem less worthy any parts of us that make us human. We're here to remember that these are just pieces that help us understand, or not even understand, but grapple with the things that we wanted to be part of our soul's journey. And you wanted this humanness to be part of your soul's journey, part of your soul's experience, part of your soul's lesson. You wanted this, in other words. And so the more we try to push away at that or negate it or say that there's aspects of self that are lesser than, even the negative aspect of your saboteurs, the negative shadow aspects of your saboteurs are not something to be negated. They're a part of self that we're meant to go into and really look at and say, why are you here? How are you actually existing to help me instead of hurt me? This is our ultimate integration. And embodiment is a highly misunderstood terminology that we use and bandy about quite a bit. But there's a huge deficit in understanding embodiment. Embodiment means in the body. So you can't use the word embodiment of the fullness of your soul's essence without doing it without this holy marriage of your soul essence and your body in oneness. This is the key to ascension. This is stepping up into elevated stations of consciousness. Pushing away at your human just continues to allow you to play in the contrast, in the unwelcome contrast of othering. And we do this a lot. Okay, so if you are casting off your mortality and saying that your human vessel is lesser than, then you are playing in the unwelcome contrast of othering. And the more you negate your human experience as something that's lesser than, or you say this 3D experience is lesser than, the more you're missing the whole point of ascension. So I'm sorry to go off on a tangent here, but I really, really wish that people could grapple with this in a more elevated way, in a more evolved way, because the more we continue othering and we are at odds with ourself, the more we are just making lateral moves through this ascension timeline. We're not really upgrading or evolving our consciousness at all. Okay? So I invite you right here, right now, if you're resonating with any of this, it's about making friends with this human vessel and seeing how it helps you incorporate your soul's essence more than it does try to push away at it, because that's your own deficit in how you are having a perspective on your soul's experience in a human body at this time. And it will always hobble your evolution and spiritual growth in this process of ascension. Okay? Sorry, I had to get that off my chest because I saw it again today in my We Are New Earth group. So we're not here to place judgment on or value on even the fact that we have negative aspects of ourselves, which might show up as our saboteurs. Because at the very essence of how they perform and what they are there for, to be instructive mechanisms to help us find our way back to our true soul essence, they're here to protect us. They're here to ensure a sense of emotional safety, because as humans, we all need emotional safety. And this is a really huge concept, emotional safety. It's really, really important. And I have some things that I wanted to share about that. Because it is foundational to every single one of us on this planet that we feel safe. Because if we are we are endeavoring to evolve into feelings of more fulfillment, more satisfaction in our lives, whatever that looks like for any of us, unless we feel ultimately safe in doing so, we're just not going to do it, right? We're not going to have the experience of that. So I wanted to look at something that I had saved to be able to talk about this, because it's really important. This idea of emotional safety. Why does it matter? Emotional safety. Our saboteurs, even in their negative shadow aspects, are a way to help us move into emotional safety, okay? Humans are driven to find emotional safety. We do it through, food. We do it through physical comfort in that way. We do it through, the things that we put in our body. We're looking for comfort and safety in the things that we eat, the things that we ingest. We're driven to have emotional safety be part of our survival, Okay, we can't survive without emotional safety. But if we don't evolve what it means to have emotional safety, we're always going to be in this survival state mindset, which is not a creative state, meaning we can't really fully embody our master creator aspect and use the fullness of our creativity, our imagination, if we're constantly trying to just survive. Okay? So you might be aware of this drive towards emotional safety, but on an unconscious level, we have a certain lack of awareness in how this emotional safety, this need that's built into our survival mechanism, is actually driving the bus of our lives, okay? So emotional safety is what leads us to emotional connection. In other words, when we have our saboteurs driving the bus of our life, these aspects are aspects that help to ensure emotional safety, but it's a misplaced and a non-evolved kind of shadow aspect of being in emotional safety. It's a striving for emotional connection. So let your saboteurs, when they crop up and you're triggered and you kind of delegate a part of self to your saboteurs, whatever they might be, whatever characteristics might showcase that for you, understand that it's showing you a need for greater emotional connection. Okay? And when we have greater emotional connection, it's an emotional intimacy. And here's the wrinkle. We crave this emotional safety, emotional connection, and ultimately emotional intimacy with other people. But if we don't have it with ourselves first, you are not going to experience it in your external reality. That's how it works, because everything that exists in our external reality, our outer world, is merely a projection of what we're experiencing in our inner reality. And those things match. They are a similar resonance. So you cannot have something showing up in your external reality that exists at odds with what you're feeling inside. In other words, if you are having a crap relationship with yourself and you don't have emotional intimacy with yourself, meaning you're proud of who you are, you trust you to support you in this world, you believe in you, you have faith in you, you have a certain mental toughness and a mental resilience that you're going to choose things that are with you instead of at odds with you over and over and over again. Good afternoon. I will check the replay. Oh, great. I'm glad it's helping you, Dee. That's awesome. So if you're lacking this emotional intimacy with yourself within, you dollars to donuts, you're going to see that same resonance reflected in the things showing up in your physical reality outside of you, or what we perceive as outside of you, because no experience exists outside of you. That's something we go deeper into in the In Alignment program. And so when you have this mismatch, what we're going to do is act out in ways that hurt ourselves over and over and over again. And you may think that sometimes we see things that are, we see people who are acting out and it's hurting others, but ultimately, if you are doing something that hurts others, you better believe it's something that's hurting you at a deep core level as well. Because everything that's measured as our physical reality is only a projection of what's happening in our inner world, okay? So we have to foster this sense of, enoughness, okay? And I've talked about this many times, and we were just discussing this in my Strong Supported Healer group, that we often talk about, or we frame our lives from a sense of lack. We don't often frame our identity and our entire personal reality from what it is that we have. We tend to frame it from a place of who we aren't yet or what we don't have yet. So through this lens of lack, we have this kind of standard that's enoughness, right? I'm not skinny enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not capable enough, I don't trust myself enough, I don't, support myself enough. That is something that exists internally if you have any of these feelings about the world at large, like the universe doesn't support me. Well, if you don't feel the universe doesn't support you, what that really translates as, you don't feel that you can support you. I don't trust the universe, I don't trust this person, I don't trust money, whatever it is, I don't trust me. Translation, okay? Shante says, all of this resonates even more deeply than before. just came back from 2 weeks of vacation where I got to put all of this into practice. I embodied with my saboteurs and accelerators, and now I have even more motivation to do this work. Awesome. And Jante, if you don't mind my saying, Jante is in my In Alignment program, and hopefully she's coming back for the next round when we start next Thursday. This work keeps evolving over time. And even though, you finish the program and you come out of it and you're working with, a whole bunch of new tools in your spiritual toolbox for, your human awakening and your human evolution, this work evolves over time. It pays out in dividends over time. You don't just finish the class and you end up like, yay, I did it all. I'm this new me and this is the most evolved version of me and I can stop right here. It doesn't work that way because we are infinite, eternal beings and we are always evolving, we're always growing, we're always expanding. And so this work that we do in Alignment and Thriving is no different. It evolves, and once we keep applying the tools that are shared in here, we keep upping the ante. We keep creating a new standard for more and overflow and being able to align with that in our lives. And whatever that means, however that shakes out, however that looks in your reality, it keeps growing and shifting and changing. And you keep reaping the dividends of that over time. This work is successive. It doesn't stop. It keeps evolving. So thank you, Jante, for saying that, because that's awesome. And I'm so proud of you and I celebrate you. So this enoughness that becomes this standard, I have to ask you, when you are viewing your own reality and identifying yourself as not being enough compared to what? Because ultimately, if you have the standard of I'm not enough, then you are also, by default, by extension, creating a standard of what enough is. But often we don't define that. If we're not clear in defining what enough is for us, you're never going to reach it. Because the only things that can be tracked in this life are the things that can be measured. So if you don't have a litmus test for what enough is for you, when do you ever get there? And the secret is that you don't, because you keep evolving. You keep, moving into the next evolution of who you are. You have phases and stations of growth. And so you never stop evolving. You never stop expanding because you're an infinite, eternal being at the core truth of you that does not end, right? But when you are measuring your life by, well, I'm not enough, okay, extrapolate that then to all the key areas of your life. You're not enough with your finances. You're not enough in your relationships. People aren't enough for you. By extension, you're going to see that. You're going to project that. So you've created ways of being, basically, that allow you to keep playing with this contrast. And it's kind of a way to protect yourself and keep yourself in this kind of emotional safety. So when we are living at the behest of our negative shadow aspect of our saboteurs, what we're doing is constantly creating these inner walls of resistance, inner barriers, where you can never get to the place of enough because you're marking your entire identity through the lens and perspective of, I'm not enough. Okay? So this emotional safety, it's a felt experience. It's created by using emotional support skills. And one of the emotional support skills that I share with you is how to move out of the negative shadow aspect of your saboteurs and move into what I call the accelerators. So Jante mentioned it just a few moments ago. So the positive polarized aspect of your negative shadow saboteurs, meaning those saboteurs that hold you back, are the negative shadow aspect. They hold you back from the fullness of life, the fullest expression of you, the version of you you were always meant to be. You have a polarized positive aspect. These are your accelerators. These are the aspects that help you to, again, have that same kind of safety, emotional safety, except it moves away from being misplaced and then becomes used properly and with integrity and in authenticity in your life. It helps you be the master creator of your reality. Both aspects protect you. I want to be very clear about that. That's why when we try to push away at these negative shadow aspects and say, you're not me, you don't exist, I don't want to spend any time on looking at you or knowing you or accepting you, what you're doing is you're continually pushing away at yourself parts of you that are really asking to come home to self. They're asking to be reintegrated into the light of your love. And the light of your love is your attention to them, your acceptance of them, your forgiveness and taking yourself off the hook from wherever you created or perpetuated these negative shadow aspects because they were just part of your learning process. Where we can say that, who I was before, who I acted out before in the negative shadow aspects of these saboteurs, I wasn't wrong. I wasn't wrong. I was simply working with the best amount of knowledge I had at the time. I was working with the information that was available to me at the time. So when we keep punishing ourselves for our past mistakes, failures, faults, through the lens of our negative shadow aspects of saboteurs, what we're doing is pushing away parts of self, and we're saying, nope, 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 not me. And you continue to fragment yourself from source. So you don't feel whole. You don't feel the fullness of life and all the joy that that brings you. Does this make sense? I hope it does. Jante says, yes, I'm coming back. Awesome. So, and we're going to work with this idea of emotional safety when we talk about emotional intelligence in this next round, because our emotional intelligence must evolve. If we want to experience unity consciousness without, that means that we have no experience of that in our external reality unless we can have unity within. So that is unifying all parts of self with all our perceived or misperceived faults, shadows, etc. When we bring those into wholeness, we bring them back into the light of our love. We are working with an evolved sense of emotional safety. We are working with evolved emotional intelligence. And everything about moving into, ascended consciousness, elevated consciousness, higher realms of awareness, emotions are the key. Every single time. We do not intellectualize or rationalize ourselves into the higher dimensional spaces. We feel our way into them. And the soul version of you, the soul-led aspect of you knows this, because it knows and agreed to and chose to incarnate here as human to experience all parts of this emotional spectrum of experience, to remember our way back to wholeness. Okay? So the more you keep pushing away at these negative shadow aspects and saying, well, I'm fucking up my life because, or I have fucked up my life because I kept being this person, I kept behaving in this way, and it was my saboteurs doing it, and goddamn my saboteurs or whatever, that's just more othering. It's more deflecting. And you're not taking full accountability and responsibility for the fullness, the wholeness of who you are. The more you continue to do that, connect with the angels, download all the activations, read all the spiritual wisdom that you want. Doesn't matter. If you don't integrate this key piece of evolving your emotional intelligence and working with the highest version of you, and that means accepting and forgiving all parts of you and bringing them back into the light of your love, then all of your movement forward in your spiritual awakening process is an illusion, because it's just lateral movement. Instead of a stepped experience of constantly evolving upward your awareness. Okay? I hope I'm being very clear here. If I'm not, go ahead and ask questions. So let's move into looking at your master accelerator archetypes, which are the positive polarized aspects of your negative saboteurs. So we talked about the negative saboteurs yesterday. We talked about the hyperachiever, the controller, the avoider, the victim, the restless, the hyper-rational, the pleaser, the stickler, and the hyper-vigilant. We went through 9 different ones yesterday, and if you want to review that, go back to day 1. So, pardon me, I burp a lot when I do this work. Because I'm a live channel and I bring through information that is not coming from me necessarily, but through me. And so I release a lot when I do that. So pardon me. So if you want to review that, go back to day 1. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, you just go find Self-Saboteur. You can hashtag it self-saboteur or self-sabotage on my page. But it's self-sabotage to self-support day 1. You'll find that video, and I'll also tag it here in the comments in my We Are New Earth group so you can find it. And if you're in the We Are New Earth group, you can also hashtag day 1 or the self-sabotage summit, self-sabotage to self-support workshop. And I go through all of those, but let's take it a little deeper. And let's look at the Master Accelerator, the positive polarized aspect of your negative saboteurs, okay? And these aren't in any particular order. So we'll start with the hyperachiever. And I got all my notes here. So when we're working with the positive aspect of this particular archetype, this is the hyperachiever has self-acceptance. Remember, the hyperachiever in its negative aspect is all about external validation and not being able to do that first for him or herself, okay? You're not necessarily, when you're in the negative shadow aspect, you're not in this awareness of your deeper emotional issues. So the master aspect, the accelerator aspect, has a lot more self-awareness and by extension, a lot more self-acceptance. In the master aspect, you're willing to look at the deeper emotional issues that you don't want to touch, or you felt like were taboo for you, or you felt like you couldn't handle them. Because key to all the saboteurs is, they get started or they come about because we had a break at some point in our lives with our ability to trust ourselves and to trust the world at large. We felt unsafe, we felt incapable, we felt we couldn't handle a certain situation that arose. And this happens for us early on in life. And then it just forms habits and conditioning that we continue throughout our adult lives unless this destiny becomes broken for us through our own self-awareness, through our own recognition of how we're operating and how we are living our lives in response or in reaction to our saboteurs in their negative aspect, okay? The hyperachiever gets to work with the idea that self-love is unconditional. So when you're in your master aspect of the hyperachiever, self-love is a given. There's no conditions placed on it. It's a non-negotiable. So even when you perceive yourself or misperceive yourself to be at fault with something, you're failing at life, or you had a recent failure, you're able to constantly reframe it as, all right, I love myself so much that I know I'm capable to do it differently. So in that sense, there is no failure, right? And in my estimation, there is no such thing as failure. It's always an opportunity to tweak a situation and approach it differently, right? The controller. So we talked about this aspect of, or this archetype as someone who can't let go. You can't leave it be. You have to micromanage every single thing in your life and every single person in your life usually, okay? It's a need to control people, situations, but it results in an extreme amount of anxiety and impatience, right? So when we're in the master accelerator archetype of that, we decide that vulnerability is safe. This is something that in the negative shadow aspect, the inception of this particular saboteur came about at a time where to feel safe, you needed to get so big in your energy to control all aspects. Although we can never really control anything except our own inner reality, right? We can't control anything in our external space. We can't control people. We can't control events. So this becomes an illusory way of being for the controller, but it does help the controller to, even in its, erroneous operation of it and application of it, you think you can control people and situations, but you're not ever really doing that. And you make your ego, you put it into this kind of superhuman kind of mode where it's a superiority function of the ego. Remember yesterday I talked about we can have an inferiority function of these saboteurs and we can have a superiority function. So even in each of these saboteurs, they're even more polarized within, because each positive and negative shadow aspect has polarity within each one of those and has dualized concepts or ways of applying themselves. So we can have superiority or inferiority ego. And the superiority ego will create the controller to be bigger than life. And it's just a way of coping. It's just a mechanism for helping us feel safe and protected. If we think we can control everything, we can't. The only thing you control is your inner reality. So if you can be in control of your inner reality, that means it's okay and safe for you that you can explore all the emotions that you experience, not just what you perceive as the good ones, okay? And that's subjective as well, right? Because we want to feel good or in control all the time, but the nature of this existence is all about ebb and flow. So things are going to spin out of control. That's that's an expected outcome, that we have ebb and flow in this world. But can you adopt this place of, even then in times where you feel raw and you feel vulnerable, you feel put upon by the world, and you feel that you're in one of those fuck my life moments where, oh my God, this again, this is breaking down again. I thought I had dealt with this before, whatever. Can you be in that moment and take a beat and say, okay, I can't control the situation. I can't control this person. The only thing I have domain over is how I respond in this moment. Is it okay and safe for me to be vulnerable? And when you're in the master accelerator version, the answer is yes. And here's the thing about the controller, is that the more that the controller aspect is able to admit being vulnerable, to admit that they're in a moment where they need some help, where they need some clarity, they need some guidance, that is the moment where it feels safe to rely on other people. It feels safe to trust other people, because you're trusting yourself essentially in that moment to be raw, to be open. And this is pivotal for the controller in order to be able to move into the highest evolution of that archetype, okay? The avoider. And we've talked about that the avoider, again, in the negative shadow aspect, can have two counterparts. The superiority ego will be a passive-aggressive, the avoider, okay? The inferior ego will be the one that wants to hide or shrink away from life, become smaller than life, in other words. Hide away. Nobody can see me. I want to be a little crab and tuck into my little shell and hide at the bottom of the ocean where no one can find me, right? Or the passive-aggressive avoider in its superior counterpart, is big, booming, larger-than-life energy that can be almost nasty in its avoider aspect, okay? So in the master accelerator archetype of this, the positive aspect, you make peace with yourself rather than, feeling you have to glean wisdom from only the moments that are, working out in life. Because the avoider tends to avoid painful situations, okay? But what's key to this archetype is that your growth, if you have a lot of avoider, is really linked to your ability to say, I have pain. I recognize that I have actually a lot of pain, and I'm willing to sit with it. The second the avoider does that, he or she starts to move into the master accelerator version, the positive aspect of this saboteur. And then you understand that there is a whole treasure trove of wisdom and insight the second you start to recognize where you are in pain. The second you start to really, really move into, I recognize how this got there. I recognize how this piece of me feels so fractured from the wholeness of me, feels so hurt, feels, so dragged through the mud, whatever that is. And what I talked about at the beginning of this call with this negation of our human, and how I see this happening in the spiritual community of la 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 la, I don't want to be human anymore. It's too painful. I just want to ascend. I just want to go 5D. Well, you can't really be fully embodied in 5D if you're negating your body. I mean, it's in the word, people. Embodied means to have this marriage of the soul and the body, and there's unification instead of othering. So that's a classic avoider symptom of thinking that you can be anywhere else than where you are. And in the avoider shadow aspect, you're constantly looking for opportunities to numb out. You're constantly looking for ways to experience something delicious or more wholesome, anything but having to be with the pain that you're in. Classic avoider stuff. So in the spiritual awakening community, the more we try to strive for, I just want to go 5D, I just want to completely ascend, I don't want to be here anymore. You have to understand the voice that's creating that is coming from a body. The idea, the thoughts that form that is coming from the mental matter that exists because you have a body. Okay? You can't negate that. You can't get out of it. Wherever you go, there you are. And so when you're in the master accelerator archetype, it's like making peace with your pain instead of avoiding it. Okay? Okay, the victim. Kind of the same thing that we're talking about with the avoider. This is, the most disempowered. This is the martyr. This is the poor me, constantly looking for rescue, a heavily internalized reality. Okay. This aspect is lacking in vitality. This aspect, when in the master accelerator archetype, is able to embody vitality. And the only way we can embody vitality is to look at what's working in life. Okay. The victim, classic characteristic of the victim is being able to look at anything in life except what's working. Loves to focus on the negative, loves to focus on where the world is dealing them out another fuck my life moment or giving them another challenge to work through, is only focused on the things that aren't working out. The victim, classic victim characteristics are about focusing completely on the negative. Okay. And in the master aspect, this is not about focusing completely on the positive, because our human experience is full of duality. It's full of contrast. We can't all the time be in positivity. It's a very, very Pollyanna approach to spiritual evolution. It doesn't exist. It's a lofty goal that does not exist. It's an ideal that does not have basis in reality. We're here to experience the ebb and flow. The key is, and what we're here to remember, is that even in the ebb of your life and those ebb moments of your life, can you still focus on what is working? Because that's the only creative space that we can occupy to create more of what can be working. Okay? If you're constantly focused on what isn't working, you are in a negative void energy. There's no creative mana there. It's a dry well. Okay? You are harnessing energy from yourself instead of replenishing it. So the victim in the master aspect, the master accelerator version, is in his or her own vitality because he or she has learned to focus on what's working. Okay. The love and attention gets to be repurposed, because it's not that the love and attention doesn't exist in the victim archetype. It definitely does, but it's been misplaced, heavily misplaced and misused, misunderstood. So when you get to repurpose this energy that is misused potential in the negative shadow aspect, you understand that you are the source of all your pain and fear, but you're also the source of all of your love and resourcefulness. Okay? And I love to think of the word resourcefulness in the master archetype of the victim, because it is all about a reunion, a reviving and replenishing by agreeing to marry themselves back into source. This is only and ever something that can be done internally. No one can rescue from that. As much as the victim would like someone to come and rescue them, it's not going to happen. You are your own rescue, right? So the restless saboteur is next. The restless always needs excitement. Grass is always greener type of mentality, right? So when you're in the master accelerator aspect of this, you realize that it's impossible to escape from yourself. Again, wherever you go, there you are. And that when you're focused on, again, more positive attributes, the things that are working in your life, you understand there's no need to escape. There's only room to evolve. Because the restless is like an escape artist or thinks that he or she is an escape artist. They're constantly trying to escape from the pain or the numbness of not being able to feel into where they are, who they are, being able to fully embrace and celebrate themselves for exactly where they are in life. The restless often thinks that, the path over there, to more wealth, better well-being, better financial health, better physical health and wealth and well-being, whatever, is always something that's over there and it's never here. I guarantee you that you're always experiencing something on the gradient of what you think you really want. You're already experiencing it in your own life, but you're not celebrating it. So the restless has a really hard time with being able to celebrate where they're at. Can't look at even the simple things like, hey, I have hot water in my shower today, or I have, beautiful fresh water to drink, which I'm going to have. Or the sun is out and I'm experiencing a big dose of vitamin D coming into my body and giving me the ability to boost my immune. Restless saboteur in its negative shadow aspect is not very good at looking at those things. So when you move into the positive aspect, you realize and you start to embrace more, there's no need to escape from myself, and I can't ever really do that anyway. So I need to be done playing with this illusion. Again, you are the problem and you are the solution. You are your own rescue, okay? The hyper-rational, we talked about it in the negative shadow aspect as the part of you that is cold, is distant, maybe even intellectually arrogant, not in the highest and best way able to relate to other people. This is because the hyper-rational is not very good at relating to him or herself and looking at, one's emotions, because the hyper-rational tends to view emotions as messy. I'd rather not deal with them. Thank you very much. But again, misplaced energetic potential, because you're never not an emotional being. You're never not feeling. And you're never not thinking and feeling about the things that you're feeling, except the hyper-rational tries to swindle itself or herself or himself out of aligning with that, okay? When the hyper-rational tends to view other people's emotions as messy, like the hyper-rational person doesn't really like to be around a lot of drama, and that's good. No one wants to be around a lot of drama. But this gets really abstracted because any kind of drama, any kind of emotional display makes the hyper-rational in the negative shadow aspect expression want to just run screaming because you can't handle it. So this is always an opportunity, I call it a gift in the garbage, to look at where you think your own emotional needs and wants are messy. Where is there room to clean that up? Where can you use this as a gift to see your emotions are something that are meant to be honored? They're sacred. They're the only things that really contribute to the evolution of your soul on this journey. Because that's what we agreed to when we came to 3D realities, to play in this emotional playground, this emotional sandbox. These are the tinker toys of this playground that we get to work with, emotions. And the more we try to shove away at that, and we prize, intellectual or rational thinking, analysis over being able to occupy any kind of emotional space or scape where we can recognize and accept or work with our emotions, the more we keep othering this level of existence. And we're going to feel at odds with ourselves and, by extension, at odds with the rest of the human family, okay? So the hyper-rational needs to learn more flexibility, and in the master aspect has more flexibility between right brain and left brain functioning, okay? The pleaser, the need to be liked, right? To, often put our needs on the back burner for the sake of making sure everyone else is comfortable, diluting how we speak or present ourselves or represent ourselves in the sake of making other people comfortable and not wanting to rock the boat. We want to keep the peace, etc. Often occupying the role of the good girl, the good wife, or the good worker, etc. Okay? But all to the detriment of our own needs and wants and desires and ambitions. And so in the master aspect of this, your own needs have to come first. Because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters is our inner experience. We can never really show up for the rest of humanity, our community, our families, the people we serve, if we can't fully do that for ourselves first. Our cup has to be full and it has to runneth over in order to fully show up to help our kids, help our parents, help, our coworkers, our peers, our communities, our clients. Until we stop being a doormat, to use Dee's word that she shared yesterday, you have to be willing to step up for yourself in more powerful ways. And it's going to be a painful transition at first because it's going to feel selfish at first. This is always the first step for the pleaser moving into her master aspect, is being able to overcome the hurdle of, but this feels selfish. Why does it feel selfish? In order for you to really fully trust yourself and support yourself and love yourself, why does that feel selfish? Where did that programming, where did that idea even come from? Is it conditioning that came from your family? Is it words that came from your mother, your father? Is it words that came from church? Is it wrapped up in dogma of organized religion? What is that? Where did it come from? And this ability to self-evaluate and self-recognize where this messaging might even come from, because 9 times out of 10, it doesn't even come from you. If we can make peace with that and understand, now I have to fill my cup first if I want to better serve others. Self-acceptance, self-love, self-trust, self-belief has to be prioritized in my life. And when you're in the master aspect of that, of the pleaser, you start to experience life a lot differently. Okay? Much better ways. And we're down to the last 2 here. The stickler. Again, the perfectionist, right? Highly critical. A lot like the hypervigilant, that it's got to be just so. And anything worth doing is worth doing 100% correct. Well, there is no such thing. And what the stickler does in the negative shadow aspect is, because of its perfectionist tendencies, keeps setting a bar of perfection so high that it remains unattainable to the perfectionist. And so you're never ever really going to get there. You're going to be, keep creating this bar of perfection that doesn't exist, and no one else is setting that standard. You are setting that for yourself. And it's a way to keep sabotaging yourself over and over again so that you keep striving for perfection, which is an ideal that really does not exist. Okay? Because the very nature of our of our being is that our perfection, if there is one, is our imperfection. Because that's the only way we get to keep learning and growing and remembering who we truly are, is through these moments of imperfection. And they have many, many variables. Imperfection has a lot of different definitions. It can be where you find fault with yourself, where you feel failure, where you feel you're not acing it at life, all of those things. You're always going to feel that as the perfectionist. And you're always going to be highly critical, skeptical. Again, grass is always greener. Like, I can always do this better. And so we never end up celebrating ourselves. We never end up in the fullness of life. We keep holding ourselves back from the fullness of life because we think that when we reach this impossible standard, then we'll be complete, then we'll be happy, then we'll be satisfied. But if you create these bars that keep ever escalating and rising, you're never going to get there. Translation, you're never going to be happy. You're never going to celebrate life. And so when you're in the master aspect of the perfectionist, you're really understanding that you're living up to your highest ideal by loving yourself, being able to see diversity, being able to see contrast, welcome or unwelcome, and be able to be with it no matter what. You are done with judging others. We never completely lose judgment here. I would love it if we did. But your inner critic becomes less and less the loudest voice in your head. You start to celebrate life more. You start to be with yourself in the present. The stickler, along with a lot of other archetypes, has a really difficult time being present and being with what is. Okay? And if we can't be present, then we can't be in the now. And if we can't be in the now, we are not in a place where we are living up to our highest, utmost creative potential. We're siphoning off our energy towards the past, which is an illusory hallucination. It doesn't exist. Or we're siphoning off our energy to the future. If we're never really living in the now, we're not living with the fullness of our creative potential. And if we keep siphoning off our places to the past and the future, basically we keep siphoning off our investment of energy towards survival mode mindset. Okay? And lack and scarcity and all those things that come with it. The hypervigilant, which is our final one we look at here. A lot of doubt, a lot of worry, constant expectation of, when's the other shoe going to fall? How am I going to fuck this up this time, right? All of those things for the hypervigilant. And you think if you worry about things more in your own kind of weird, skewed perspective, the hypervigilant will think that they're doing something about it by worrying. I have this with my mom, classic hypervigilant. When you're so wrapped up in this negative shadow aspect of this saboteur, you're actually thinking you're doing work on something. If you're preoccupied with it all the time, you're worried about it all the time. But that doesn't change the outcome of anything. Okay? But all your attention, your focus, and your energy is going towards worry, towards preoccupation. And you're never in the now moment when you're doing that. Never, ever, ever. Because you're constantly setting up scenarios in your head, events that have not come to pass. They're not etched in stone. They don't exist in reality, but they become real in your mind. You start to shut down systems in your body. You start to deplete all kinds of things in your reality. So the hypervigilant, when in the master accelerator aspect, it really is about stepping into a trust in your ability to face whatever challenges come. And you know that the very nature of reality is just, there's not good life, there's not bad life, there's just life. There's just life. And challenges come in many forms, but it's how your perspective is that can skew a challenge to be a really great challenge or a really big challenge. There's no such thing as a great or small challenge. There's just moments in life where you get to choose. That includes your own perspective. And in the master aspect, the hypervigilant gets much better at being able to occupy a perspective of there's no good or bad life. There's no great or small challenge. There's just life, and there's just moments of life. And I get to choose how I want to respond to life. Do I want to respond to life like things are working out? Or do I want to respond to life like everything's fucked? It's your choice, right? It's your choice. And also the hypervigilant in the master aspect gets to use energy to dream and manifest better outcomes. So I mentioned yesterday about this particular archetype, and few of these archetypes have this as main characteristics, but the hypervigilant, think about if you're a hypervigilant, your capability to worry about things at great lengths and conjure up all these scenarios of how things can go wrong. Well, that's only one polarized way of using this energy, and it's the negative side. What if you were using the positive polarized aspect of this, and in the master accelerator aspect of hypervigilant, which you're actually doing with all that energetic potential, is rolling it over towards imagining really awesome outcomes. So the hypervigilant has a really special gift, in my estimation, because they're incredibly creative individuals. They're creating all of these, worrisome scenarios. They're equally as good at and adept at creating all of these incredible life-enhancing, life-enriching scenarios. But they just don't. And the reason they don't is because they're habituated to the negative shadow aspect side. So everything I'm talking about here are habits. The reason you have more of an expression in your life, in your daily reality, and how you view your personal reality, it's the habit of you. So if you have these saboteurs expressing themselves really strongly in your life, the only reason really is because it's become a habit to be this way. That's not the end all be all of who you are. Because if you have the potential to create those habits, you have the potential to create good and wholesome habits. It's about changing your perspective. And it's about moving away from this place of fear and survival and rolling that energetic potential over to being in love with your existence, with who you are, with all of your skills and abilities and talents and capabilities, strengths, right? But we're just not good at doing that yet. But if we hope to evolve our potential, we have to be able to work with these saboteurs as tools, measurements by which we can see where we've had a skewed perspective of reality that isn't actually true. But it has been our perspective of reality, and we've made choices based on this perspective of reality, but even those choices haven't been made from the most wholesome aspect of who we are. What would it look like in your life if you rolled over these energetic potential of these mechanisms, these capabilities, into the positive aspect, the master aspect? What kind of choices would you be making in your life then? What kind of decisions would then come easy to you because you're looking at your life through the lens and the perspective of your accelerator archetypes, your master aspects, instead of your shadow? Well, I can tell you I've seen how this works because I've been teaching this, and this is something that is an integral, deep, and profound process of integration that I teach in the In Alignment and Thriving Core program. So if you want to go deeper down the rabbit hole with this and you're fearless about being able to look at this and finally tackle this stuff head on, because you're meant for a higher and better expression of you. You can see it, you can feel it, you can taste it, you can hear it, but you feel you're just not quite there. I can tell you, if you can see it and you have awareness of it, it's meant for you. And there are some tweaks, some adjustments you need to make in order to align with that. And everything about making this dream, these ambitions of what you view or have for yourself as these ideals, this expression you want to step into, if you can see it, you can glimpse it, it's there, it's meant for you, but you're just not aligned with it yet. Everything about this program is about helping you get there. I can't say enough about how powerful this is and the shifts that I've seen that have taken place and are continuing to take hold and take place for the women in this program. How do I know? Because we finished teaching it a little while ago, but I would say almost every day, if not 4 or 5 times a week, I'm getting messages or texts from the women who are in this group telling me about this new evolution of how they've applied this tool over and over again, and this is what it looks like now. And this is how different they feel this week compared to last week. And this is how, much more of they're stepping into their highest expression this month instead of last month or that last year or whatever. I'm seeing how this is working out for all of these women in this program, and it's really incredible. It's an amazing thing to witness. And you can probably tell in the way I speak about this that I'm incredibly passionate about teaching this. And so as a visionary, what I'm really teaching you is this is like a masterclass in being your own visionary and being able to imagine and step into creative potentials that perhaps even a year ago, perhaps even 2 weeks ago, you didn't even dare dream was possible. Or you couldn't even sit with it, or you couldn't even see it at all. So it's kind of like a master class in being able to be your own visionary, and then not only to just envision it, but to embody it, step into the fullness of these potentials and own it, claim it. But unless we have the inner resonance to be able to solidify that in our external reality, we can't do it. So this is a very unique group program. It's even a mentorship towards stepping into your master aspect. And when you do this, you step more fully into alignment with the New Earth timeline, which is all about unity consciousness. Because as I mentioned, you can't fully step into and resonate with unity consciousness in the external reality unless you have it first in your inner reality. So this is so important, and I'm very passionate about teaching it. I love teaching it, and I cannot wait to get started. Looks like my internet went out, so I hope you got all that. So the link for In Alignment and Thriving Core program is here in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the top description of this video. We are going to start live next week, Thursday. So we're going to meet Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time. There are always recordings. So if this does not jibe with your time zone, that's okay. You have access to the recordings. It exists in two places, these recordings, in the private Facebook group. So we have a private Facebook group for discussion and support and whatever you need, really, guidance, because you have me as your teacher. So you get a lot of me, you get a lot of Catherine time to help support you, be with you, give you guidance, take you where you're really desiring to go. And what's really unique about this program is, even though it's a group mentorship, a group membership program, I do offer an ability to be with me for 30 minutes, just me and you, where we talk about whatever you're really struggling with. And about halfway through the program, I introduce this, and then you'll have time to have these 30 minutes with me. You may think 30 minutes with me isn't a lot. I guarantee you that it is, because I work very quickly, because I tune into the energy between your words, between what you're asking for, and tune into, yes, maybe what you're asking for and what you're needing, but on a much deeper level, because I'm an intuitive channel. And I'm very, very adept at working very, very quickly with you. And we can do a lot in 30 minutes. So this is something I offer in this program that you don't see in a lot of group programs, that you do get some individual one-on-one time with me. There's also a masterclass, a bonus masterclass that helps you step into your up level. It's something that we cover in Alignment and Thriving Core program, but then I have a separate 3-day masterclass that focuses just on that. That's offered as a bonus in here. My book, Notes on Ascension, is also offered as a bonus in this program. That's going to help you integrate this material as well. If you are interested in joining this program, the price is going to go up the next time, because every time I teach this program, I never teach it the same way. I always add more. It always evolves, because you are always evolving. My work is always evolving. I'm always evolving. So everything I teach and share always evolves. So you're not going to see it at this price again. There are payment plans for it. I have, you can pay the full price. You can pay with a 3-month payment plan. And then there's also a weekly payment plan that is a no-fee 6-week payment plan. So there's no fees added on top of it for processing, etc., if you are willing to pay weekly for it. There's really no other program like this, you guys. I'm sorry. Sounds like a bold claim. But I'm not sorry, actually. I fully own that there is so much uniqueness to this powerhouse program, and you're going to absolutely love it. I hope that you will seriously think about coming to join us next week. I cannot wait to start live. I'm so very excited. When you get in there now, you have access to all the bonuses I just mentioned. And you can even check out the Master Timeline Self-Hypnosis, which has been added in there as well. So, thanks everyone for joining. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope this has, brought in some light, help you to shine a light in some areas in your life that just ain't working. And maybe you're ready to shed these layers of the false self. Stop telling a story about yourself that is not true. Let me help you with this. This is my zone of genius, my sweet spot of teaching and mentorship. I hope that you feel aligned with my energy, that you jibe with my vibe, and you want to come join us. So, love and peace. Bye-bye.